Welcome to Healthy Eating, and today we're going to make a very simple dish of rice and beans, and we're going to put certain vegetables in there. Very healthy dish and very fast to make. We're going to talk about the basics of nutrition today. So the basics of nutrition are quite simple, and the things that we want to reduce are fat, sugar and salt. If we can reduce fat, sugar and salt, already your diet will be much better. So first of all, let's look at some of the basics. So some of the basics of eating and having a healthy diet is breakfast. So you should always have a good breakfast in the morning. Get some carbohydrates if you can. We're going to talk a little bit later about good carbohydrates and bad, or complex and simple carbohydrates as we go along in this series. But you do need some fuel or energy for the day coming up. And it's important to eat every 4 to 6 hours, and eat every 4 to 6 hours throughout the day. And then generally speaking, we talk about a 12-hour fast. And a 12-hour fast is if you have supper at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you may not eat again until breakfast 7 o'clock the next day. So you're eating for 12 hours and you're actually not eating for 12 hours, and that's the 12-hour fast. That's the recommendations now to let your body recoup and get back fully normal. So when you do eat, and again, one of the basics is we tend to eat very fast. We're always on the go. We always want to eat fast. You don't necessarily have to eat fast. The slower you eat, the better it is for you. For example, it takes 15 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that it's full. So if you eat slower, you're going to eat less. One of the problems with most Canadians is we tend to overeat, and keeping that good body weight is a healthy body weight, what we call it, is going to give you good protection against things like cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes. So to try and keep your weight down is good. So when you can, just eat slowly and fast for 12 hours if you can. So that's one of the basics that we talk about. Next of all is drink water throughout the day. You want to have a constant supply of water. Try, if you can, to reduce things like coffee and tea, and eat and drink more water throughout the day. This is going to give you a full feeling. It's going to reduce your need to kind of eat empty calories. And empty calories are things like chips, fast foods. It's where you get lots of calories but not really a good nutrition punch. So we're always going to be looking in this series of videos, we're going to be looking at getting a good nutrition punch. What do you get out of the food? What is your body getting out of the food? And by developing good eating habits now, while you're young, is much better for you, because as you age, your metabolism is going to slow down. It's going to be much harder to keep that weight off, and as soon as you put the weight on, it's going to be this is when you're going to have certain health issues. So developing good habits now is going to see you for a long time to come. So we're going to talk mainly in this series about fat, good fats, bad fats, how we reduce fat. We're going to talk about sugar, how bad sugar is in your diet. There's natural sugar, there's sugar that we add. Most foods have sugar added to them. So we're going to talk about reducing sugar in your diet. And then also sodium or salt. Salt is made up of 40% sodium. So we're going to look at how we can reduce that sodium in your diet. Most Canadians tend to have too much fat, especially saturated fat versus unsaturated. Have too much saturated fat, too much sugar in the diet, and too much salt. So those are kind of the keys there, the basics of nutrition. We're also going to talk about getting a variety, foods that you don't normally eat. We like to say variety is the spice of life. So the more different types of foods you can include in your diet, the better your body will be for it, because it's going to extract different nutrients from all these different foods. if you are going to go grocery shopping and you're going to buy foods in the grocery store, we're going to talk a little bit later about reading labels, knowing what's in food. Some foods that you think are quite healthy are not really healthy, and some foods that that you buy are just packed with salt, sugar, preservatives, just things that we just don't need. So we're going to talk about keeping a healthy body weight as we go along. We're going to talk a little bit about lifestyle change, and you'll know if you have to make a big lifestyle change or a small lifestyle change when you see some of these videos. But let's start off with a very simple dish, and all you really need to know about this dish is this. We're going to use a little bit of rice, and we're going to use a little bit of vegetable stock. So rice and vegetable stock, 1 part rice, 3 times the amount of stock is all you need to use for this dish. Everything else that you put in there, everything else that goes into this dish is a bonus. So we're going to start the dish. Get this going. We're going to start this dish with a little bit of olive oil. Now you can use any unsaturated fat, and an unsaturated fat is an oil that is liquid at room temperature, not solid. So something like butter or lard would be what we call a saturated fat, and then an unsaturated fat is the S oils, which is soybean oil, safflower oil. Those oils there, sunflower oil, are all liquid if you put them into the fridge. Now canola oil, olive oil is a monounsaturated fat, and a monounsaturated fat is kind of in between. If you put it into the fridge, it sometimes solidifies. So we're going to use olive oil today because olive oil in the latest research has shown that it's very healthy to cook with. Just pure olive oil, not extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is a bit more expensive. First pressing of the olives, that we're going to use for things like salad dressings, things like that. Just pure olive oil for cooking. We're just going to use a tablespoon of olive oil, get it nice and hot. And what I like to say is hot pan, cold oil. So don't put any food into a cold pan. You want to hear that sizzle when you put it in. The first ingredients in a lot of my dishes I use is just an onion. And we're just going to chop an onion very fast. Cut it one way. The root of the onion is holding it together. Cut it on its side, and then we're just going to dice it down. And so the knife, the blade only goes through the onion once. This is a basic technique that chefs have been using for 150 years. I won't use the root. The root has a little bit of bitterness in it. We're going to put those onions in. You hear that sizzle? That sizzle is important. Okay, so put the onions in. Now, next of all, I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. The more aggressive you are with garlic, the more the taste of the garlic. In this case, I don't really want a strong garlic flavor. I just want that base onion. Any kind of onions are good in this. You can even use some leeks if you've got some leeks. You see them at the grocery store. Excellent as a flavor builder. So these are what we call flavor builders. Take the garlic, and what we're going to do is just chop this garlic up and put it in with the onions. I always start the onions first because they brown. They take a little longer to brown. The garlic will brown right away, and in this particular case, we don't want the onions to be too dark. So we're just going to take a blade, go through the garlic, keep it into pieces, and that will give you the nice seasoning of the garlic. If I wanted a strong garlic flavor, I would crush it with a tip of the knife, and just make it like a puree to put in. In this case, we'll put the garlic in, toss it in. Now, this dish is going to be vegetarian. If you wanted at this point, we could add a little bit of lean chicken, just shredded lean chicken we could add in there. If you wanted it to be a nice chicken dish. In this case, I'm going to keep it vegetarian because I like vegetarian dishes. Now, whatever vegetables, and that's why I say rice and stock is the main touch of this, whatever vegetables you add to this could be whatever in your fridge. So if you've got some broccoli, now broccoli, you've got the nice florets, the flower part of the broccoli, but you also have the stem. Now you don't have to waste the stem. You can take the stem, cut it, and you could add some of the stem of the broccoli in there into your dish. Put that in. You can add some carrots if you've got root vegetables. Again, carrots are going to add a nice flavor to this if you've got them. If you don't have them, don't worry, don't have to put them in. Remember that the dish itself is just going to be beans, rice and stock. We'll put some carrots in. Now this now is going to be the base of your dish. You'll see that we've got this, got a little carrot there. So you can see now this is going to be the base of your dish. We're creating flavor. The more flavor you can create in this dish, we are going to use the florets of the broccoli. So I'm just going to cut those into nice little pieces. The more flavor you can create, the less salt you'll need. So you can use all kinds of things to flavor. So if you're going to flavor a dish without salt, remember salt, 40% salt is sodium. You're allowed about 1 teaspoon of salt a day, 2,300 milligrams a day. Unfortunately, everything that you buy from salad dressings, things that they put in the freezer, they all have salt in there. So we have to be aware of packaged food that we buy. If you cook from scratch, you can control the sodium much easier. So when you look at fresh herbs are great for taking care of seasoning. I've got some basil, I've got some parsley, fresh parsley, I've got a little bit of oregano. These now, if you're going to add these, you would add them right at the end of cooking. They'll release the flavor very fast into the dish. That's going to give you a little seasoned effect. If you've got dried herbs and you're using dried herbs, you can take a little bit. I'm just going to use about half a teaspoon of oregano. Put the oregano in there. And we put that in now because it takes much longer to release its flavor. Turn the heat down just slightly. And this is the base right now. We've got carrots, onions, garlic, a little bit of broccoli in there because we want that nutrition from the broccoli, but it's adding lots and lots of flavor. Now at this point, you can decide on what rice you want to use. Obviously, if you want to use a brown rice, you may have to pre-cook it. If you want to use something like a wild rice, which is really a grass, it's not a rice at all, but you would need to pre-cook it. It takes about 40 minutes. This dish only takes 15-20 minutes to cook from start to finish. So we're not going to use wild rice, but I recommend using brown rice, wild rice, if you like that kind of nutty flavor of brown rice. If you want to just start off and get into a half healthy dish with lots of vegetables, then we're going to use basmati rice. I love basmati rice. Remember, 3 to 1. We're going to put the rice in, and we're going to use 3 times the stock. So first of all, just let's get that rice toasted in there before we add it, just to separate the grains. We're going to use vegetable stock in about 3 times the amount. If you want, you can add all kinds of different vegetables. Whatever you've got in your fridge, you can use. I've got a little touch of zucchini. Now zucchini doesn't have a big nutrition punch, but it will take up all the flavor, and it will give you a little bit of a texture to the final dish. So we're going to take our zucchini and put the zucchini in there. Doesn't take long to cook zucchini. We're going to toss it right in. You can use a wooden spoon if you don't want to toss it with a saute pan. The saute pan, just a slope-sided pan, and the slope-sided pan at this point, you can just toss it around. It just lets it flip around so you don't have to use a spoon. Red peppers. Red peppers, I put red peppers in lots of things. They've got all kinds of antioxidants in if you want to put them in. So you can take red peppers, diced red peppers if you want. and pop those in. So we've got red peppers, and then toss those in. So now you've got a good selection of vegetables. Doesn't have to be the vegetables I use. You can use any kind of vegetables in there. Just take a look at the cooking, how long they take to cook. 15 to 20 minutes this dish is going to be finished. Now I've got the rice grains separated with the olive oil, all the vegetables in there. I'm going to add my stock. Not quite everything there. We're going to let this simmer away. So I'll bring it to a boil, and then I'll let it simmer, and I might even put a lid on it. But we're going to add some other things in here. We're going to add a good nutrition punch to this. I've got some lentils. Now these are brown lentils. So the darker the lentils, the longer they take to cook. If you wanted to use red or yellow lentils, you could put those in now. Red and yellow lentils take about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to cook, and they can cook right in here. You can put them right, wash them, put them right from the bag into there, and you can cook those red and yellow lentils. Now brown lentils, black lentils, take a bit longer to cook. So I pre-cook them. So I've got my lentils. Now these are brown lentils here. Now brown lentils are a legume, and so are the kidney beans. So lentils will give you things like iron, B vitamins, especially folate. Folate is excellent. You're going to get fiber from these. So things like legumes are just invaluable. You'll see that I cook a lot with legumes, and if you put them into a dish like this with rice, you really don't notice them that much if you don't really like those things. Great against, great protection against things like cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in Canada. So we're going to take these lentils, we're going to pop the lentils right in. I've kind of cooked those now, the lentils, just in water. Didn't put any salt or anything in. I cooked them for about 25 minutes, and I'm just adding them to the dish now, and they'll finish off cooking. They usually take about 40 minutes to cook brown lentils. They vary in degrees, but they're going to give you all kinds of great things in there. Now you can do the same thing with kidney beans. The most inexpensive way to buy kidney beans is dried. You'll see things like these are black-eyed peas here. Now black-eyed peas, what I like to do is soak them and then cook them, and they take about 40 minutes, 45 minutes to cook. And black-eyed peas you can put in there. So whatever kind of legume you've got, if you can use dried, soak them, cook them, or some like lentils you can cook straight. You don't even have to soak them. They're going to give you a fantastic nutrition punch. First and foremost, you're going to get fiber. It's going to keep your innards moving. Things like lentils are going to help your blood, your red blood cells. They're going to give you a great B vitamins, and again, the one that I really like is the folate, and they're going to reduce your cholesterol, and we'll talk a little bit later in the series about cholesterol, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, and how we can reduce that. So we're going to put the beans in there, and then we're going to look at this whole dish. How do we take this whole dish, and how can I make this dish flavorful without adding salt? And it's not really salt, it's the sodium, but salt and sodium are interchangeable. If you add salt, you add in sodium. And there are things like, they promote things like sea salt as being a healthier salt. It's less processed than regular table salt, but unfortunately it still has the same amount of sodium. So whatever salt, even if you think you're grabbing a healthy salt like sea salt or kosher salt, it's still going to have the sodium. You're still adding sodium to diet. And sodium is going to let you hold on to water. It's going to, you'll find that your body will hold on to the water. This is going to raise your blood pressure with sodium, and then with a higher blood pressure, again, you get into the cardiovascular and the #1 killer of Canadians. So by adding things like beans to a dish, you'll find that you've got a much healthier diet. So this right now is just going to cook away. We're going to look at how we can season a dish like this, and this is just vegetables, vegetable stock. Now if you're not vegetarian, then you don't have to put all vegetables in. You could use a little bit of chicken, you could use chicken stock, you could use little strips of beef and beef stock. I'm going to make this a vegetarian dish. But the key to this is by using different beans, things like lentils. I really recommend lentils. They cook fast. The red and yellow lentils cook very, very fast. The longer the lentil takes to cook, usually the better it is for you. But lentils are excellent for providing all these this nutritional punch that you need, especially things like iron, folate, as I said before. The kidney beans, same thing, lots of B vitamins, lots of folate, going to keep that blood nice and clear, and we just don't get that enough in our diet. But by adding just a few to a dish like this, you really won't notice them. It's how you season them. So now, how could we make this a little bit spicier? We can use any kind of spices. Remember, spices won't do you any harm. Spices will add a season effect, and you won't have to grab the salt shaker. So what we try to do these days is the less salt. If you need a little bit of salt, that's okay, but the less salt you can use, the healthier the dish is going to be. The less sugar you use, the healthier dish. And then by using a unsaturated fat or an olive oil, which is a monounsaturated fat, the better it is. And in later videos, we're going to talk about the different types of fats, we're going to talk about different types of sugar, and we're going to talk about different types of sodium. One dish alone is going to be dedicated just to reducing sodium in the diet. And remember, most beans and legumes are gluten-free, so you can use them in a gluten-free diet. If you're looking at what you can have for a gluten-free diet, we can make dishes just from beans itself. We don't have to have rice and other things in there. But for this dish, you can see already that this rice now is starting to be absorbed, and all the vegetables are in there, and they're going to take on all that flavor. So if I want to add broccoli, broccoli is excellent too. So we know that anything in the cabbage family is something that we could use, so we can use that in there. And we're just going to put a lid on there and just let those steam a little bit. And now take a look at some of the herbs that we can add. You know, if you've got tomatoes in there, people love basil, so a little fresh basil is good. A little bit of parsley. And this is going to release its flavor very, very fast. Other things that you can season with is lemon. Lemon juice and lemon zest are excellent for seasoning things. So if you wanted, and you really strongly don't want to use a lot of salt, you can take just a touch of the lemon zest. Now let's say you take that off and you've got the white pith in there. So that white pith is not that healthy. That's kind of has a bitter flavor. You just need the yellow part and just the zest, if you like. So the zest is going to be the part that flavors the dish. So by taking that, cut it into super thin strips, and you can add that right to your dish. Now remember, broccoli won't take long to cook. You can see it's already greened up. We're going to add our zest in there. Make sure that goes right into the dish because we want that lemon flavor to come out. We're also going to take a little bit of lemon juice. Lemon juice is a quick seasoning. You're going to find that you take it, add it in, you'll need much less salt in your diet. So if you start cooking like this when you're young, remember when you're older and you'll actually won't want the salt, you won't want the fat, and you won't miss the, when we get on to using sugar, you won't miss those ingredients. And those are the key for Canadians. Less fat, less sugar, less salt. You can see it's already absorbed. basmati rice, just a few minutes to cook. The broccoli is already steamed. All those vegetables are picking up the flavor. You don't have to overcook the whole dish, but if you wanted, you can cool it down and make it like a fried rice, like a little olive oil the next day if you want to make a big pot and make it like a stir-fried rice. Obviously, pepper's excellent, so you can use pepper. You could use any kind of chilies if you want to make it really spicy. And you'll find that all those flavors come through. The herbs really take seconds to come out. So we've got those herbs in. We add that little bit of oregano at the start. So we've got some nice flavored herbs in there. And now you can see that the dish is almost absorbed, the rice has almost absorbed the stock, and this dish now is almost ready. So you can see it's a bright, colorful dish. Any vegetables that you like can be put into this dish. I mean, even if you wanted to use things like rutabaga, you just have to cut the rutabaga, cut it nice and small, pop it in there. So anything. You can even put potatoes in here. Put potatoes in, sweet potatoes, anything like that would be excellent in this particular dish. So this is the dish. No real recipe for this dish because it's just 1 part rice to 3 parts stock, whichever rice you use. Generally speaking, a white rice. We're going to talk about the benefits of white rice and brown rice in a later segment. And stock. We're going to talk about stocks, how you make a healthy stock in a later segment. But for now, this is the dish. You've got vegetables, you've got your rice, you've got your beans in there, and you've got your lentils. And the lentils, you won't even notice the lentils are in there, but they're going to give you a good nutritional punch. We'll leave it at that. That's the basics of healthy eating. So I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll see you next week.